What's good, Journey students? How y'all doing? It's November. It's November. How many of you guys are the Christmas before Thanksgiving people? Wow, there's like 4 of you. Okay, never mind. That's cool. I'm kind of a Christmas. Why spend all that money on decorations if you're only going to put them up for like 2 weeks? But it's whatever. If you guys have been here for the past month, we were in a series called I Have Questions, and we just finished it. It was absolutely an incredible series. And the last time we were here, last Wednesday, we literally just sat up here and went through as many questions as we could that y'all had sent in. And what I wanted to encourage you is that even though that series is technically over, please don't stop asking questions. If you guys had questions that we didn't get a chance to get to, or if you guys just have new questions, or whenever they come up, please don't feel like you have to wait till we do a series like that again. Just ask your connection group leaders, ask leaders here. Keep asking good questions, guys. Just keep doing it because that's what this is all about. It's what we're here for. But for this month, we're getting into a series called With You, as you saw on the bumper. The series is called With You. And basically, our series for this month is basically just, it's how to be with people in really difficult times in their life. That's the basis of this entire series, is how to be with people in really difficult times, because we're getting into the holidays. And holidays are so much fun. We get off of school, we have family stuff, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all this stuff. But holidays can also be really, really hard for a lot of people. You have hurt that resurfaces or new hurt, all kinds of stuff. It comes out in the holidays. And so we wanted to have this series just to start preparing ourselves for that. Start preparing ourselves as followers of Jesus so that we can be with people when they're hurting. But to start off the series, I have a question for you guys, and I expect a couple answers. So, in y'all's opinion, who is either the best actor or best actress of all time, in your opinion? Throw some out there. What'd you say? Ryan Reynolds. The Rock. No, I said no. Anyone over here? Christian Bale, is that what you said? Christian Bale? Anything? Anyone else? They're solid actors, except for maybe The Rock. What'd you say? Vito? In my opinion, Robin Williams is the best. Robin Williams is so good at doing different things in acting. I think he's incredible. But what would you guys say makes someone a great actor? What makes someone a good actor? Emotion. Someone said good emotions. Someone else said something? Experience. Qualities? Just qualities. That makes someone a good person. Qualities. What'd you say? Believability, that's a good one. Okay, I heard some emotions, believability, being able to just do things. What I wrote down was emotions was a big one, being able to just portray emotions. And then I also said just being able to put themselves in someone's shoes. So being able to put yourself in another person's shoes makes someone a good actor. And for actors, that's literally their entire job. If they can't do it, then they don't get paid, they don't get to work and do what they do. But it's also extremely important for us as followers of Jesus to be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes and be able to feel what others are feeling. And that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. And sometimes it's kind of a hard topic because emotions are extremely complicated. They're hard to kind of unravel and get to the bottom of, especially the one we're talking about today, which is grief. Grief is a really heavy emotion, and it's mostly because it's a lot of things tied together. Grief is, it's sadness, it's depression, it's fear, confusion, anxiety. It's even nostalgia is even a part of grief, of remembering what once was. And that's exactly what grief is. Grief is when we have lost something or someone that was really close to us. And if you've ever had a friend that was going through grief, you might have also felt stuff. You might have felt sympathy, or maybe you just felt super awkward. Have you ever been with someone and they something happened to them and it's just super awkward for you? You don't know what to do, you don't know what to say, and you're kind of wondering if you should say anything at all, if you should call them, should you give them space? It's awkward, it's confusing sometimes. And for example, my senior year of college, it was the Christmas break of senior year of college, and my best friend Spencer, I was supposed to go visit him after Christmas in Nashville and just kind of hang out with him for a weekend, just be together and hang out as friends. But have you ever made plans that as the time starts to get closer to when you're supposed to do it, you realize like, oh, I probably shouldn't have made those plans. And you're like, I am going to have to cancel because something else is going on. Like there's something more important. And so that's basically what happened. There was something more important, and I had to call him and be like, hey, Spencer, I'm so sorry, but I'm not going to be able to come next weekend. And, it was super chill. He was fine. But then a couple days later, he called me, and he was like, hey, Trey, I have bad news. I was like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, I've had a bad cough, and I went to the doctor for it, and they found a growth on my right lung, and they're pretty sure it's cancerous. And that hurt me. Like, it still hurts right now, and he's better and he's good, but it still hurts me right now. Like, I was terrified for him. I was fearful for him. I had sympathy for him. And when things like that happen, you kind of question, you're like, what do I say? What do I say to make it better? And of course, what I said was, well, I guess it's a good thing I didn't buy those plane tickets. I guess I can't come this weekend. What a great friend. What truly uplifting. Truly uplifting. Well, I guess it's a good thing I couldn't come this weekend. Why did I say that? I have no idea. It just came out of my mouth. In my mind, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was being funny. It just came out. And to be fair, we're still great friends. We were best men in each other's weddings. But I have no idea why I said that. And it just reminds me, have y'all ever had something happen to you and someone just said something and it was like, that was the worst thing you possibly could have said? Or you've done it to somebody else. Either way. There's really good examples of this that I hear all the time, literally all the time. And one of them is this. It says, something happens and someone comes up and there's like, God needed another angel. God needed another angel. What a terrible thing to say. Or you get the, oh, honey, everything happens for a reason. It's going to be okay. I don't know why I decided they're all country, apparently, but everything happens for a reason, then someone will tell you. Or God will never give you more than you can handle. God will never give you more than you can handle, which, by the way, it's not true. This is a good one. Boys, I'm sorry, I've heard this a lot. There's always more fish in the sea. There's always more fish in the sea. That one hurts, doesn't it? That one hurts a little bit. He said, a little more fish in the sea. Or my favorite one is when someone comes up and they're like, I know exactly how you feel. And then they tell you a story that is not how you feel. And it hurts. Like, it doesn't help. When someone is grieving, comments like that, they never are helpful, ever. All they do is minimize people's pain. They just minimize people's pain, and it's almost like you're telling them in a way it feels kind of like, okay, just get over it. Like everything happens for a reason. It's going to be okay. Just get over it. Move on. That's kind of what it feels like. But if we want to be people who love God by loving others well, then we have to figure out how to love others when they're grieving or when something tragic is happening. And the good thing for us is that the Bible is full of examples of how to love others well. It's also full of examples of how not to love others well when they're grieving. And they actually come from the same group of friends in the same story, which is the book of Job. And to give you a little bit of context, if you don't know, in case you don't, Job is a person in the Bible, and this is what the Bible says about Job. In chapter 1, verse 2, it says, Job had 7 sons, 3 daughters, so he had 10 kids. And Job, he owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, and had a large number of servants. He was the greatest man among all the people of the east. So Job's pretty cool. He's a good dude. He's kind of killing it. And then all of a sudden, Job, what happens to him is he loses everything. Job suddenly has all of his animals, thousands of them literally, they're either killed or they run away. All 10 of his children are killed in one natural disaster. He gets sick, and he gets like horrible sores just literally all over his body. Everything bad is happening. And his only remaining family member, his wife, literally looks at him and goes, I don't understand. Why don't you just curse God and go ahead and die? That's encouraging. That's a good thing to say to somebody, right? Like, the only person that's still with you. And then his friends come, his 3 friends show up, and after a while, they end up lecturing him and telling him all these things and making assumptions about him and like, you you must have done something against God, and he's doing things to you. And they just keep telling him things, and he's like, he doesn't want that. As a matter of fact, in Job 16:2, he tells this to his friends. Job looks at his three friends, and he goes, I have heard many things like these. I've heard all these comments you're telling me. But you are miserable comforters, all of you. Miserable comforters. And sometimes people just need to hear something like that. You need to tell your friends, you're a miserable comforter. You need to get better. But it's wild that stuff like that happens. But the cool thing is, his friends didn't do all bad. Matter of fact, when they first showed up, they actually gave us a really good example of how to be with someone when they're grieving. And in Job 2:11-13 is where we see this. When Job's three friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, when they heard about all the troubles that had come upon Job, they set out from their homes. They met together by agreement to go and sympathize with him and comfort him. And when they saw Job from a distance, they could hardly recognize him because of everything that had happened to him. And they began to weep aloud for their friend. They tore their robes, they sprinkled dust on their heads. They sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights, and no one said a word to him because they saw how great his suffering was. That's how you treat someone that's going through grief. When Job's friends first heard, everything that was going on, they did 4 things. First, they sympathized with Job. They had compassion on their friend who was just hurting deeply, and they showed him that they cared. And then they worked together. They, got a group of friends, and they made plans to go and comfort their friend. And they knew him, they knew each other, and they knew that Job should not be alone when something crazy like that happens, when he's in grief. They knew their friend should not be alone. And then they showed up for him. They cared enough about him to make the trip to actually see him. And then they empathized with him, which is even bigger than being sympathetic. They went the extra mile, and they showed him empathy. Empathy isn't just feeling bad for someone, but empathy is when you actually feel their feelings with them. They saw him, and they started to cry aloud. And they, it's weird to us, but they sprinkled dust, and they made themselves look like they were in grief too. They were trying to make themselves look like Job and be with him. And they sat with him for days. They literally put themselves in his shoes in order to help him be comforted. And although the catastrophes that had happened and all the craziness that had happened to Job hadn't happened to them, they made Job's pain, their friend's pain, they made it their pain too. When someone is grieving, they don't need anyone to tell them, hey man, it's going to be okay, and give them a pat on the back, it's going to be okay. They don't need that. People don't need that. They for sure don't need us to lecture. They don't need someone to give them a sermon. They don't. People that are grieving don't need that. They need us to be with them just like God is with us. We have an example of that in Psalm 34, verse 18, that says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and the Lord saves those who are crushed in spirit. So the question is, how can we be with people when they're grieving? Because it can be really uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to be with someone on the worst moments of their life, isn't it? You don't know, like we said before, you don't know what to do. It's hard to be with someone in the worst moments of their life, but it is so worth it. It is worth it. It is worth the awkwardness, the confusion, the possibility of maybe saying something dumb. It's just worth it. And when we show up for our friends who are grieving, our friends get to see God's love and how much God cares for them by the way that we love and care for them. And we get to see how God is going to work through their lives. We get to see how God is working through them. And then on top of it all, God also works in us. When we are with people when they're grieving, when we're with people when they're hurting, God gets to go into our lives, and he gets to help us be more compassionate, more selfless, more patient, and more loving. And so God works through us, in us, and through those that we're with. And with practice and just with God's help, we learn to be the kind of friend that our friends need when they're going through something extremely challenging and when they're in grief. And the hard thing, it's hard to give you like 5 steps of, do these 5 steps and you will help someone through grieving, because grieving is different for everybody. There's different things that they really need at different times. But what we can do is we can give 5 basic examples of where to start. If you have a friend that's grieving, here's 5 things of just where you can start with them. The first one is, when a friend is grieving, let them know you're there. You don't have to go up to them and talk to them. The deep conversation right when something happens. Just let them know you're there. Offer them a ride to church or school if they need it, if they need that kind of help. Just ask if they want to hang out. Get a group of friends together to take them and do something fun. Just let them know you're there. If you have a friend that's in grief, do not let them feel like they are alone. That's the worst feeling when you're in grief. Don't let them feel like they're alone. Just let them know you're there. The second one is listen. They may not want to talk about it, especially at first. That is totally okay. But you need to show them that when they're ready to talk about it, that they can. And when someone does talk to you about something really deep, and especially in terms of grief, when someone is talking to you about their grief, do not interrupt them. Let them talk. Don't tell them, oh, I get it, I know how you feel, and give them a story. Just let them talk. Let them get it out. Just be there for them. Be an ear. And that goes along with being patient. Your friend may need your support for days, weeks. For a lot of things, they may need you for years. What they need from you may look different over time and at different times. But just keep checking in with your friends, okay? When they go through something, check in on them. Even if they don't seem as sad as they did in the beginning but it doesn't mean they're not still grieving. Check in on them, especially on big dates and important dates. Your friend may be sad during big anniversaries. Grief hits really hard on big anniversaries or holidays that are coming up. That's when grief hits the hardest. So do things that make someone a little less stressful during those times. Do something that makes things a little less stressful for them during those times. Maybe it's a big anniversary that you know about that's hard on them, or a certain day that's hard on them. Make them their favorite food. Bring them their favorite food. Just do things that try to lift their spirits at those times. Be there for them at those times. One of the big things you can do is, have you ever had a friend and you know they're in grief, you know something's really hard's happened to them, and there's a big anniversary date of maybe a death of a family member or something that's hard on them, or maybe it's a holiday, and you know that during that time you can see how it affects them. How someone may just seem a little off because it's hurting. When that happens, be the person that defends them. When someone's not at something, whether it's school or an event or sport, whatever it is, or they're just off because of something that's hurting, be the person that defends them in that moment. Don't let people talk and be like, why are they acting so odd, this week or this today, or why are they not coming to, whatever this game is, or this party, whatever it is. Be that person that defends them in those moments. That can go a really, really long way. And the fifth thing that's important is take care of yourself. When you're supporting people and you're in that role of being an ear and all this, it can be hard sometimes. And sometimes people, when they're in grief, they act out towards people they love and maybe have a big mood swing, and that's totally okay. It's not a personal thing. It's not against you. It's hard. Something inside of them is going on, and it's a really hard day. Don't take it personally when someone acts out. And don't let the things they tell you and let you in on, don't let it affect your heart. Have someone that you're able to go to and talk about it and just let your things out on as well. Have someone that's able to take care of you as well. When Job's friends got right, what they got right was being willing to sit with Job. They sat with him without saying a word for 7 days because that's what he needed. And as you leave today, as you go to connection groups, all that stuff, be thinking about what do you know, or who do you know? Be thinking about who do you know who is currently grieving? Or maybe who do you know who will be having a hard time during the holiday season because of something that happened this year? And then ask yourself, how will you show them God's love and God's comfort in the midst of their pain? Who and how will you be with people when they are grieving during this month and during this season? Pray with me. God, I just want to thank you for everything you do for us and the comfort you offer and the just extraordinary peace that you give. And as we get into the holidays, sometimes it can be really, really hard. And it's probably hard for a lot of people in this room. And even if we're joyful and there's good parts, there's parts that are just tough of things that come back up. And first, I want to pray for everyone in this room that you will be with them, and anyone that needs it, you'll just give them an overabundance of just comfort and peace through this season. But I also pray that as Journey students, as a group, that we can be people in our schools, in our friend groups, in our family, that we can be the people that show your love and your comfort to those who are grieving and missing someone they love or have had something going on in their lives that have just caused them grief and hurt. And I just pray that as a group, we're able to be their comforters and just point them to you. We thank you for everything you do for us, and everything you give us. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.